Welcome to Proud Product Peeps. Today's guest is Amberly Richardson. We reminisce about the impact of episodes and how she's proud of realizing one of her professional dreams. I wanted to welcome Amberly to Proud Product Peeps. I haven't seen you in a couple years. Thank you so much for joining.
Of course, so happy to be here. And anything to take out episodes gear out of my closet, which I know we'll get into.
Yes, yeah, you teased that a little bit. We'll definitely get into that. That was a great experience. It's actually what I claim I'm most proud of. So not that anybody's asked me in these podcasts, and I definitely wasn't expecting you to ask me. This is about you today.
Sure
So actually, the only reason I wanted to do this was to call you out for getting me in trouble at a user conference. I asked you for approval on what I should say. I had a joke lined up and you said yes, and I got in trouble for it from the audience. So I wanted to call you out on that and wanted to hear your point of view as to what actually happened in that situation.
I think about this way more than I need to or should. It lives rent-free in my head. So Justin came to me and ran a joke by me, and we have similar sense of humors, I think. And so I said, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, go for it. And the reason why it lives rent-free in my head is because later that day and into the evening, I thought, you know what? Some people might be offended by that. And it was late and I didn't want to text you super late. And then I didn't want to get in your head right before you went onto stage. And so I think about it all the time because it's those times where I don't ask the question or I don't speak up that always just I regret.
So I'll set the scene. You tell the joke. Are you okay with that? Yeah, it's okay. You'll be fine. That's
okay.
What you said. Okay. So we had these badges that we had all the attendees wear. This was Miami 2019, I think it was. And we had these fancy badges, which basically, if you put them together, it would share contact info between each of them. And then so you didn't have to ask for a business card or whatever. It was before phones had that capability, which would make it way easier now. So my joke was up on stage during the keynote when I was explaining, doing the rules of the house and what to expect throughout the day before I actually got into the keynote. But what was the joke?
I'm going to say the PG version, and it still makes me uncomfortable. That's how people would be intimate in the future.
Yes, I thought that was, it was funny, but it didn't get a huge laugh. I think there was a little bit of, it was like first thing in the morning, like in the first 5 minutes. And we really saw the effects when the survey came back a week later. And there were some comments, not like a ton, but maybe, a handful plus about how I was mean to my other the other folks that I had on stage with me. But that one really stuck out because I really blame you for going wrong.
As you should. And it's so funny because now I have to lead, and I'm proud to lead corporate governance and content governance and have to be super conservative
so
about
ironic.
what we say and print. And so thank you for that lesson.
Yeah, and I thought it was fine because a few years earlier, I officiated my mom's fourth wedding, and my wife Brandy proved all of the material, and some was a little, awkward and obnoxious and everything. So I'm like, okay, it's good. I have somebody approving it, but it didn't really work out. So that's your fault.
It is. I take full blame and always send that text, always ask the questions, always say something.
Before I get into the actual purpose of the show, you recently took a trip to Sitka, Alaska. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
That sounds like a great place, but it's actually Sitka, Alaska.
What did I say? Stitcha? It wasn't even close. Sitka. I see it in my brain. I don't know why I didn't say the right thing.
But that sounds beautiful too. So one thing I love about where I work, which is iSolved, is we have all these great customers who are willing to share their stories. We work with HR professionals who are people, right? And they're ready to tell a great story. And so we have this customer named Jaylene Owen who moved to the island of Sitka, Alaska, and basically established HR practices on the island, which weren't there prior to her arriving. So think about, an island with a population of 8,300 people, and she arrives and is like, we're going to have things like, time and attendance policies. And so everybody thought, okay, she's here to ruin our fun. And then she kind of flipped the mentality of HR that it has to be all about rules and not making inappropriate jokes like that. And she flipped that mentality into like, I can help you grow your career and you can, have a great employee experience and everything. And so Paige Lefevre on my team and I were able to go to Sitka, Alaska and film her story. And the entire town kind of opened up to us to be able to like go into businesses, into the forest, like you name it. And we were able to like cover it. And so we have that like short film coming out soon. So it was a great experience.
Was that the first time you've been to Alaska?
It was, yeah. Have you been?
I have not. Was it everything that you had expected and more?
Yes and no. So it was as beautiful as I expected it, but I thought there'd be more bears. And so I was really excited for that. Like I thought you would just, walk outside and you'd have a bear encounter, good, bad, or ugly. And the only bears we saw were in kind of a zoo. But what was interesting is they rescue these cubs who are orphaned and give them a place to live out their days. And the company that we went to go cover for the documentary, they actually like feed the bears with like from their grocery store and everything. And so we got to even go pretty up close with those bears, but I was just expecting like walk outside and be like, hello, boo boo. That did not happen. Every time we'd go somewhere, someone would say, you just missed them. And we're like, I'm pretty sure they don't exist.
Did you have to carry bear spray around or were people carrying bear spray?
What's the opposite of bear spray? Like I wanted to
Perfume?
attract them. Yeah. No, we didn't carry any.
But okay, wait, hold on a second. Okay, so let's say you walk out of the hotel or wherever you're staying and you happen to see a bear 20 feet away. What do you think was going to happen?
Well, I can tell you what I thought was going to happen and then what actually did happen. So I was just telling Paige on my team, we were walking through like a forest area and I said, my toxic trait would be if a bear comes up right now that I would think that we could be friends, and I'd like go pet that dog. And then a dog actually appeared out of nowhere and spooked the entire team we were with. They thought it was a bear and I pushed Paige out of the way. So I like to tell Paige it was a stretch assignment and like I really wanted her, to start leading from the front.
Wow, you literally threw Paige not under the bus, but under the bear tracks. Like,
yeah,
yes.
I have some making up to do for Paige.
Did you go into this podcast thinking I need to mention Paige's name at least twice?
Nope. Hi, Paige. 3 times.
Yeah, we were in Montana and we were hiking in Glacier and stuff, and like they're like bring bear spray, and everybody was pretty spooked at the potential of seeing a bear on the trail. And so we had like music playing on a speaker and like all the things, but none of us knew exactly what we were going to do because we didn't have Paige to push in front of. Yeah. Did you do races with Paige or anybody else on the team to see who was the slowest to make sure it wasn't you?
No, but good call.
Yeah, exactly. I was a neighbor of mine. We were playing night golf one time, unsanctioned, and he was kind of scary. We actually called him BTK because he reminded us of the serial killer. And so we heard cops one time and he pushed me and I go, what are you doing? He's like, I just have to be faster than you. And if you have a head start of being on the ground of getting caught, then I'm like, fine. So yeah, same, I guess that's the bear analogy. So,
and he's not your friend. He's just a neighbor. So glad
he was
really
just a neighbor.
Find that.
Yeah. I don't know what's happened to him in the last 20 years. Yes. All right. So curious, we haven't talked about it exactly what you were going to talk about from what you're proud of, but I'm absolutely curious and frankly hope that there's some relationship to episodes, but I won't put too much pressure on you. What are you most proud of?
So, I mean, there's so much to choose from. It's weird to talk about yourself, but one accomplishment that I'm really proud of does come back to you because you told me everything has to. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago, a group of us were in Chicago for meetings, and you had basically asked me like what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I realized much later that you were just trying to poach me. Don't tell Rachel. But I had sent you like a 5,000 word essay about everything I wanted to do. And one of the things that I included was to write a book for our customer conference. And recently I was able to co-author a book. We had it available at our industry event, HR Tech, and then coming up into our customer and partner conference, it was going to be on all 1,000 seats in the general session area. And I was going to send you a picture. Like, I made it happen. I was so excited. Unfortunately, we had to make the difficult and unnecessary decision to move the on-site conference to virtual because of Hurricane Milton. So we didn't get to see the books on the seats, but we're still able to do like a customer panel with all of the customers who were included and everything. But that week when we moved from the on-site event to virtual, it was the first time I kind of unpacked my COVID dictionary of words like unprecedented and pivot and everything. And it really did remind me of 2020. When was the last time we worked together and had our virtual variety show episodes? So, and that's how we tried to engage employees during a very difficult time and in a virtual way. So you made me promise all roads would lead back to you. And so there it is.
Well, yeah, it started there and ended there. That's great. But let's pick apart one. I'll forgive you for taking 6 to 7 years to actually fulfill what you had wanted to do. Glad I never poached you and you worked, because that would have just taken too long to actually realize value. But talk
I
a
like to
little
work
bit
in
more.
slow-paced environments.
Exactly. Yeah. Snamberly. So if you just talk a little bit about what the book and, a little bit more about it and the process, I think that that's always the interesting thing. Putting the jokes aside that it might have taken 6 to 7 years, I'm pretty sure that the topic itself didn't take that long.
It took about 3. So Jeff Webb, who's the co-author on the book and another proud product peep, we had been talking about, all the trends that we saw across our customer and partner base of like how they grow in their HR maturity and how they get investments and employee experience and everything. And a lot of them had the same stories. And he had the brilliant idea of having like a fictional character go through a lot of these situations and then marry it with the real world customer stories. So we have our lead character, Jen, who's, having a heck of a time at a company. Employees are leaving left and right. They can't get top talent and so on and so forth. So it follows her, like it follows her to work, to home, to the coffee shop and everything. And we hope it's a compelling story. And then as Jen is experiencing these things, we insert stories like Jaylene from Sitka, Alaska, and what she's actually going through. And so it bounces back and forth between nonfiction and fiction. And I would say we talked about it for 3 years, but we didn't get serious about it until January of 2024. And then we delivered it, just so you know, Justin, by June of 2024. So about a 6-month project.
Okay.
I'd like to recover my reputation.
And as one of the top 15 most prolific writers I know, top 15.
Number 14.
That must have been, you sincerely, all jokes aside, like that must be a truly proud moment to realize that. I mean, because you love writing, you're amazing at it. And then actually see the end result, like that really truly must feel good.
I don't know how to handle being serious, but yes, it was, right? And at HR Tech, which is our big industry show, we were able to do book signings and have our customer, Jaylene, next to us. And that just was really, really great. And to, sign books for people who I'm proud to know and like have really helped shape my career and everything was a really neat experience. But now we have to write another because we're going to have to get a book on a chair.
Yeah. And did you actually practice your signature leading up to that?
I actually did because I have terrible penmanship. Like I should have been a doctor. And so I was like, people are going to actually have to like be able to read what I write and my names.
Did you end up making it pretty consistent of every single time that you signed it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. I just bought a car a couple weeks ago and you had to sign. It was still that lender was paper. And each of the signatures was so different. I'm like, how do they even know that it's going to be the same person? Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. And by the way, they don't require middle names anymore, specifically because of millennials, Gen Z, or whatever, because they don't know their middle name. That's what the sales reps told us. And yeah.
Well,
So
just thinking about signatures in general, like cursive really isn't taught. So, like, are the
yeah.
younger kids like not going to have a signature, or do they only learn how to sign their name? And then what if they get, they change their name? They're like, sorry, I'm gonna have to print that.
Yeah, exactly. So, first book, you still have three more to go to catch Dean Barker.
No
And
catching Dean. He's probably working on his like 10th right now that we don't know about.
yes, are your colleagues making fun of you about your book that like we did with Dean, or is it not there yet because you don't talk about it as much?
They're not there yet. Surprisingly, you may be surprised. I don't have that same relationship with a lot of people to poke fun at them. Usually we keep it pretty nice. But, we were teasing Dean, but also Dean just loved that. He really considered it an act of kindness, right? So, um, a flashback to like 4 years ago or so, one of our favorite colleagues, I'm just going to say he's your favorite, Justin, put words in your mouth. Dean Barker wrote a book, and we did a what was that? Cameo for him. Cameo had just kind of like gotten popularity from a Parks and Rec character, and we played it live on episodes, which we keep alluding to, but need to get into. And Dean was almost brought to tears. Like even to this day, whenever I message him, he says it was like one of the nicest things that anyone did to him. So we were, being lighthearted, but I think it was also kind and meant a lot to Dean.
Hey, great segue to episodes. So the point of episodes was we actually started episodes. I think it was slightly pre-pandemic, where we wanted to just have a regular webinar or something to just kind of talk about it. We had a contest, we had it named, and then it became really relevant during the pandemic, where we were doing, I think, like 2 shows a week. And we started off with like, how do you homeschool your kids? Like, what does that look like? To what are good dishes to make? You want to talk a little bit more about the concept, and then we can talk a little bit more about that entertainment episodes that we did, because I think that was the most production value, the highest production value of all the ones that we did. So that's good to culminate on. But you want to talk a little bit more generally about episodes?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the timing and everything because obviously 2020 sticks out in my mind as just, it does everyone's. But 2019, you're right, it was just to fix an internal comms gap. Like a lot of our colleagues weren't aware of things that were happening. So we were talking about product roadmap, right? And like different marketing activities and everything. And when we pivoted to more of like more of a variety show in 2020 to engage employees. That's, I think, when we had even more fun because it was like relevant topics and we had guests too, right? So Justin mentioned the homeschool one. His wife Brandy came on and like gave teaching advice, right? And we'd have different people come on who had different skills from our family who are all home with us, right, during that time. And so let's make them part of the show. I think every one of your kids was on it. My kids weren't supposed to be on it, but we're on it several times because it was the COVID era. So it was just a way to fill a communications gap that we had at the company, which is not unique to most organizations. And then when COVID hit, it was a lot of pivoting of like the more entertainment value. But I almost forgot about the entertainment one, and that one was really, really special. So you should talk about it.
Yeah, so we did ones. We had a travel one where people talked about like the different places they went, or other things like what happens at the holidays in Sweden versus Germany. Like, what do you celebrate? Those types of things. But the entertainment one, we had everybody dress up and wore a tux, an evening gown, whatever. And we would have, a few hundred people join, potentially, 30-40% of the company at any given time live. And we would ask people in advance, can you do X or Y, come up with your own idea? But the talent part of recruiting was probably the most complicated, but we started to do higher value ones, or production value ones. And so in that particular one, we did have people do different reviews live, but we also interjected between the guests cameos that we would have recorded. I think you did one for me from Santa, and then the first round pick of the Panthers at the time, Derek Brown, who, it wasn't the best. I don't think we showed it. We had, the one for Dean, that it was a book review from Jerry from the show that you mentioned. My old neighbor Bubba, he did one on Talladega Nights. So we had these.
I mean, you can't just gloss over Bubba. That was a really big deal. You got to dive a little deeper there.
Yeah. So who's the host?
NASCAR driver, Bubba.
Yeah. So Bubba Wallace, and he hates Talladega Nights, and I asked him to do a review of Talladega Nights, and it wasn't the best review because he hated it, but he went with the script and the flow. But it was such high production. We had music, we would play different things, but we would also order shirts. We were joking that you have, a ton of swag, but we would order shirts specifically for those different ones. So the holiday episodes, there's people who would join, we would send shirts. I think during that period, we ordered a couple hundred shirts, didn't expense a single one. And we would give them away as gifts, but also to, folks. And people would ask us to do like custom things. And they started to seek out asking us to, participate in all that stuff. It was just an unbelievably fun thing. It took a lot of work, but we got a little bit of crap at times because, we weren't focused on our primary job. But we also won an award. What was it, from PR Magazine, PR World Awards? And it was a good experience. To your point, communications, making it about individuals, making it as personal. It doesn't all have to be, like you're talking about Sitka and the HR person. It doesn't all have to be just rules and regulations and boring stuff. You can really create engagement by doing some fun things. And that was, a fun time. So for like that stuff, forget the pandemic part.
Yeah, it was a highlight of my career for sure. And I always appreciate you bringing me into it. It was definitely your idea. And it was just so much fun. And it was also very inclusive, right? Like we got people involved from all parts of the organization at a global company across the world. Like I remember being in people's kitchen as they showed us how they cook their favorite meal, right? And I also remember being in my kitchen showing you something and having to hide in my pantry because my kids were being crazy because it was that time during COVID. But it was just such a special time, and I hope everyone got as much joy out of it as we did because it was really incredible.
Oh, I just remembered one of the ones from that cooking episode. A shout out to Kevin Lee. Do you remember what Kevin Lee did? He boiled water, but made it this very elaborate process. And all he literally did was boil water. But it was like a 3-part exercise. And people are like following along. And then at a certain point, they're like, what is going on here? Do you recall that?
I do. And that's Kevin, right? And people were able to bring their true selves. Like we talk a lot about employee engagement and experience and everything. That's it, right? Like bringing your true self to work, even if it's just for that like fun 20-minute exercise of water. But it was really special.
Yeah, that was it was a good time, and I do sincerely actually include that as what I'm most proud of, because it was at a point something that was needed. It wasn't for personal gain, because that was a lot of effort that we put into doing those shows. And the production value I keep mentioning, like we kept upping it and making it like a literal show. We kept joking that it was like a morning show that we were doing a couple times a week. And then it got kind of exhausting because we had our day job and things started to pick up. But it was something that was awesome. So I'm glad that you indirectly brought that up based off of pressure from me during this to include that as what you're most proud of, yet I'm the one that did most of the talking. So good job.
You're welcome.
Could you imagine, can you see doing something, maybe not exactly the same because it's situational, but could you see something like if you were to create something with some capital, could you see creating something similar today at where you're at?
Yeah, I think we've replicated some of the elements, right? I solved. We have a program called I Solved Insider, and I remember telling you about it, and you're like, "Who's your co-host? Do you have a logo? Do you have swag?" All these questions. Like, don't worry, it's not the same. But it's that, right? To make sure that employees have the best possible information for them to do their jobs and feel included. And so typically it's used for like major product launches. It's used to communicate out key messages, and there are caricatures. So that was part of the episodes too. Everyone who would join the show would get a caricature of themselves, and we were at a news desk and everything. But there's elements of it that still make it successful, like the intent to be inclusive and make sure people have information is still there.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, like, how do you bring out the personality in a corporate environment? That is difficult, very difficult at times. I do say that when people want to start something, I say the first most important thing is you have to have a logo and a caricature. Everything else is easy. That's literally what I did with this. One day I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and I connected on Fiverr. I'm like, can you do a caricature?
Yeah, Fiverr was our silent partner during those times.
Seriously, yes, yes. I had to change my credit card because you had it at a certain point where you're just.
Yeah. Oh, do I still have it?
No, it's a different number. It's a different number. Yeah. So yeah, but that was such a great experience. With that, you grew up in Cyprus, the country.
California, and there's also Cyprus, Texas. Didn't grow up there. Cyprus, California.
So close. I'm not so interested in asking any questions anymore now that I know it's not the country. No, you grew up in Cypress, California, not near Cypress, in Monterey, where they have Cypress Point, which is one of the top 5 golf courses in the world, in Cypress, California, Orange County. So I have true, false questions. I have 4 of them. Nobody has gotten them all right. So let's see if you can be the first one. Okay. Yes, you win nothing. So
well, I have your credit card maybe somewhere on Fiverr.
I'll send you a coin.
All right. Have
one. First question. Cyprus was originally named Dairy City.
True.
That was true. Renamed to Cyprus this isn't a part of the questions, but do you know when it was renamed?
No, but my family was in Cyprus for decades and decades before I was born, so I know all about the dairy fields and everything. I'd have to imagine, if I have to guess, 1979.
Oh, very close. 1975. So, yes. All right. So you got that one right.
I went over, so I would have gotten wrong. Price is Right rules.
Oh, yes. Amberly was on Price is Right, and she won the Showcase Showdown.
You have to mention it at least once.
Yeah, just like Dean and his $4. Dean's going to be like, how did I catch Crossfire in your other podcast? All right, second question. So Paige and Dean got the most shout outs. Way to go, Paige and Dean.
As they should.
Second question. Cyprus has a population in 2023 of 75,000 people.
You know it's not 2023, right?
Well, but they haven't released 2024 yet. Thank you. True. Oh, I thought you meant true. They haven't released. Yes. No, false. You know, you're the only one that I'm messing around with numbers. I refuse to have people say yes or no to numbers, but I made purposely I made it much higher, 49,243. Oh. So you were off by like 50%.
A ton. Yeah.
Okay. So you already lost. Cypress High School was founded in 1943. Did you go to Cypress High School?
I did. CYPRESS. As did my mom, as did all my uncles. I would say true.
False. 1973. Yeah.
I'm not doing here.
The last question. There are no famous people from Cyprus.
Oh, well, you know that's not true. We have John Stamos, we have Tiger Woods, we have Jodie Sweetin, and the list goes on.
Well, what's interesting, when I looked it up, I didn't recognize anybody, so I actually counted that as true. There's no famous people. But before we started recording, you did say Tiger Woods, so I kind of had to give you that one, and it's kind of subjective if I say I didn't recognize anybody, but I recognize those people that you had mentioned. So yes, Tiger Woods was from there, and Jodie Sweetin from Full House. Was that the Full House?
Yeah, very nice. Full House friendly town.
Yes, nice. Okay, last question, not true or false, since you totally failed that exercise. I'm curious for almost selfish reasons. I'm trying to get good ideas on TV shows, movies, or books. Curious, any one of those doesn't have to be or and any recommendations. What's your favorite TV show, movie, or book in the last year?
I wouldn't say favorite, but I just finished Midnight Library, the book, and
No,
it
no,
was
no. I
really
said favorite. You can't just say
okay. My
a
absolute
book you
favorite book in
read.
the entire world is Midnight Library. It was good because it was this concept of like the different paths that you could choose in life, and it's just a really good like way of looking at life and like the roads that we can and haven't taken and everything, and it was really entertaining. Favorite book ever,
So,
no doubt.
so that was the wrong answer. It was a true false. The right answer is web content management, systems, features, and best practices, real world content modeling by Dean Barker. That was your favorite, but you,
You know
or
what?
the other
I
right
bet
answer was your
you
own.
can't reach a Dean book as quickly as I can. So I would like Dean to give me extra credit for having two of his four books right next to me.
Okay,
Hi, Dean.
I no longer have any of his books. I have a total of, let's see, that amount of books. They just,
This tracks.
they're pointless. Like pictures are better than books, I think. So so yes. All right, with that, I really wanted to thank you for joining. With all jokes aside, this would be very boring.
Well, I just want to take a minute to say how proud of you I am as the leader of the Proud Product Peeps. You just live and work so authentically, and you're a great leader and product executive and husband and father, and I've just watched you live and work like so authentically, and I always like remind myself of that. Like when maybe I think I was a little too goofy or overshared, which tends to happen, and I think, what would Justin do? And then I do the opposite. I try to. No. But you live and work authentically. You want to surround yourself with good people and kind people. And I'm just really proud of you too.
Thank you so much. I think I can no longer do any more podcasts. I think that was the culmination of all of them.
We're done.
Yes. Well, thank you. Really appreciate you joining and seeing you for the first time in a long time. So appreciate it.
Don't be a stranger.